Imagine for a moment, you're walking among the living, yet the world sees you as a ghost. The people you once loved, the friends who once trusted you, now speak of you in whispers, as if you had never existed. But you are still here, alive, breathing, watching, waiting, for the moment when you'll rise from the ashes of your own demise. What if the very people who thought they had buried you, who thought they had written your final chapter, were wrong? And you? You had the last laugh. It sounds like a story straight out of a thriller, doesn't it? A tale of betrayal, death, and the ultimate revenge. But sometimes, reality is even more twisted than fiction. This is a story of survival, redemption, and power, of how someone thought to be lost forever came back to claim what was once theirs. Let's rewind to the day when it all started to crumble. The day everything you thought you knew about life shattered. It was a day just like any other until it wasn't. You see, the world can be quick to judge. It can be merciless in its assumptions. One moment you're walking beside the people you trust most, and the next you're written off as just another casualty. Life doesn't care about second chances, right?
Wrong.
Because for the first time, I learned the power of silence. The power of staying hidden, playing the role of the ghost they wanted me to be. They thought they'd erased me from the story. Little did they know I had a plan, and I was only waiting for the right moment to make my return. You might wonder, how did I come back from the dead? It wasn't some miraculous resurrection, no. It wasn't a stroke of divine intervention. It was a choice to wait, to observe, to understand the power dynamics that were in play. And when the time came, when the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, I knew it was my turn to step into the light. I had been betrayed by the very people I trusted. A family member, a close friend, and, worst of all, a partner. Each one of them played a part in orchestrating my downfall. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't the kind of person to stay down for long. In that moment of isolation, I found my true strength. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in the sheer will to survive, to rise. And when I did, I didn't just come back. I came back stronger, wiser, and ready to take control of what was rightfully mine. Before the world thought I was gone, I was once someone they could rely on. I wasn't always the person they would later betray. I was a friend, a partner, a son, someone who believed in loyalty, in trust, and in the simple beauty of human connection. But as you'll soon see, life doesn't always turn out the way you expect. Sometimes, the people closest to you end up being the ones who tear your world apart. Let me take you back to a time when things were different. To a time when I wasn't a ghost, but a person with dreams, hopes, and a future. I grew up in a family where trust was sacred, where loyalty was the highest virtue. My father, a man of principles, taught me that your word is your bond. A handshake meant something. A promise was sacred. To me, there was no greater strength than the bond of trust. But my trust, like my family, would be shattered. My story isn't just about betrayal, though. It's about the choices we make and how those choices shape us into the people we become. In the beginning, I was like anyone else. I was a young dreamer, eager to make my mark in the world. I had big ambitions, ones that seemed within reach. I had a partner, someone I thought would be by my side forever. Together, we were a team, untouchable. Or so I thought. Then, there was Sarah, my best friend from childhood. We grew up together, shared secrets, and laughed until the sun came up. I thought I could count on her with my life. But as I would learn the hard way, some friendships are only meant to last as long as the good times. When the hard times came, Sarah made choices that would break my heart, choices that would change the course of my life forever. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. Nothing could have warned me about the person who would betray me in the most gut-wrenching way possible. It wasn't just a partner's infidelity or a friend's lies. It was the fact that, in the end, these people, these ones I had trusted with everything, decided I wasn't worth their time anymore. They chose to turn their backs on me. And worse yet, they decided to make me disappear from their lives completely. In the blink of an eye, I went from being a beloved member of a tight-knit group to someone they all thought was gone for good. It wasn't just that they believed I was gone, it was that they wanted me gone. They didn't want to be reminded of their mistakes, their guilt, or the damage they had caused. It was easier to bury me than to face the consequences of their actions. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's where everything changes. While they thought they had erased me, while they believed they had succeeded in casting me out of their lives, I wasn't as helpless as they thought. My background, my experiences, the very values I was raised with, all came into play when it mattered the most. You see, the core of who I was never disappeared. No matter how much they tried to bury me, no matter how much they wanted to forget me, the fire within me never died. And that fire would soon become the very thing that led me back into their lives. But this time, I wasn't just going to return as the person they once knew. I was going to come back as someone completely new. The first step was learning to trust myself again. When the people closest to you let you down, it's easy to lose faith in others. But I knew that if I didn't trust myself, if I didn't believe that I could rise above this, then I would forever remain the victim of their betrayal. I couldn't let that happen. As I retreated into the silence, I reflected on my upbringing, the lessons my father had taught me. He'd always said, "Never let the world define who you are. Only you have that power." Those words rang in my ears every day. They kept me grounded, even when it felt like the world was slipping through my fingers. The isolation, the silence, it was all a part of my plan. In those moments, when everyone thought I had disappeared, I was plotting my return. I began to rebuild myself from the inside out. I learned new skills, studied things I had once overlooked, and most importantly, I rediscovered who I was. And as I did, something remarkable happened. The more I let go of the old me, the more I embraced the new me, the stronger, wiser, and unbreakable version that was waiting to emerge, the more my mind began to work in ways I'd never imagined. I started seeing things differently. My past wasn't something to mourn anymore. It was a stepping stone to something much greater. And soon the time came. The time for me to take what was mine. By now, I had started to realize the full extent of my situation. The world thought I was dead, but I wasn't dead. And I certainly wasn't going to lie down and let my story end in a grave they had decided for me. The people who had once been my closest allies, my family, my partner, my best friend, believed they had no reason to fear me anymore. They thought the worst was over. But in truth, they hadn't even begun to understand the storm they had just unleashed. The betrayal was still fresh. It wasn't just the act itself that stung. It was the cold, calculated way they erased me from their lives. They didn't care about the emotional wreckage they left behind. They didn't think twice about the damage they had caused. And when I realized they didn't even have the decency to face me, to tell me why they had done what they had done, something inside me snapped. I had been pushed to the edge, but now I knew this was not just about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming my life, about showing them the power of silence, the power of what they underestimated. This was my opportunity to take control of the narrative. It all began with a single phone call. At first, I thought it was a prank. The voice on the other end of the line was shaky, uncertain. Is this really you?" it asked, barely above a whisper. It was Sarah, my best friend, the one who had once been my confidant, the one I had trusted above all others. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize her voice. It was as if the years of silence had stripped her of everything that made her familiar. There was nothing left of the woman I once knew, only a shadow, a broken echo of the past. "You thought I was dead," I said, my voice steady, but inside, I could feel a surge of anger rising within me. "You all thought you could bury me. You were wrong." She was quiet for a long moment. I could feel her hesitation, her fear. And that's when I realized how much power I held over her. Over all of them. "I didn't want to do it," Sarah whispered, the guilt evident in her voice. "I never meant for any of this to happen. It just got out of hand." "You never meant for it to happen?" "Well, it did. And now you have to live with it. All of you." As I listened to her apologies, I felt nothing. No sympathy. No forgiveness. Just cold resolve. They had made their choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. The anger was bubbling under the surface, but I didn't let it show. I knew better than to let them see me weak. They had already seen enough of that. The old me, the one they thought had died, was gone. This was the new me. The one who would take what was owed. The one who wouldn't back down. "You'll have to face the consequences of your actions," I said calmly, but every word cut through the silence like a blade. "But first, I need you to know something. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. And trust me when I say, I'll be the one deciding how this story ends." I hung up the phone, my fingers still tingling from the weight of those words. But I wasn't done yet. I wasn't done with Sarah, and I certainly wasn't done with the others who thought they could get away with destroying my life. The real challenge was still ahead. Days passed, and I found myself in the midst of an internal battle. On one hand, I wanted to make them feel the full extent of their betrayal, an eye for an eye, so to speak. But on the other, I knew I had to remain in control. I couldn't let them see me unravel. I had learned that lesson the hard way. The more I played their game, the more I'd lose. So, I decided to take a different approach. Instead of running headfirst into a confrontation, I began to watch them, to study them from the shadows, like a ghost in their midst. I observed their movements, their reactions. I saw how they interacted with one another, how their guilt began to eat at them. The cracks in their facades were becoming more and more visible, and I reveled in it. Sarah, still trying to hold onto the remnants of our friendship, kept reaching out. She sent messages. She called. Each time, I ignored her. But with each message, I could sense the growing desperation in her words. She wanted me back. She wanted forgiveness. But the truth was, forgiveness was never going to come. Not yet, anyway. And then there was my partner, the one who had once promised to stand by me through thick and thin. I had loved them with everything I had, but when the chips were down, they had abandoned me. No second thoughts. No hesitation. Just an empty space where once there was love. I knew they were starting to feel it. The weight of their decision was beginning to crush them. They reached out too. But this time, I wasn't going to play the part of the victim. No. This time, I was in control. I had the upper hand, and I was going to make them sweat. But what really shocked me was the sudden shift in the people around me. The more I stayed silent, the more I let them feel my absence, the more they began to question everything. There was a shift in the air. People who had once been loyal to them, who had once supported them in their actions, were starting to ask questions. They were beginning to wonder if they had made the wrong choice. And I saw it. I saw their cracks. I saw them start to unravel. I had become a ghost, yes. But a ghost with a purpose. And in the silence, I was letting the world do the work for me. They were digging their own graves without even realizing it. The moment I had been waiting for was finally here. The tension that had been building inside me, the silence that had been stretched to its breaking point, was about to erupt. They had no idea what was coming. But I did. Sarah's calls had become more frequent. She was begging for forgiveness, pleading with me to meet her. She needed closure, she said. But what she didn't realize was that I didn't need closure. What I needed was justice. I needed to make them feel the full weight of the decisions they had made, to show them that they couldn't just erase me from their lives without consequence. I had heard whispers of their guilt. It was only a matter of time before it consumed them. But I knew I couldn't wait forever. I had to act now, while they were still vulnerable. And in that moment, I felt the full force of my resolve. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. I wasn't going to be the one who was wronged. No, I was going to be the one who took back what was mine. I had planned everything down to the smallest detail. The meeting, the confrontation, every word, every gesture. I would hold all the cards, and they wouldn't even know it until it was too late. The night of the meeting, I arrived early. I could see them already waiting, standing together, huddled in a circle like a group of conspirators. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me as I walked up, my presence making the air around us grow heavy with tension. It was almost like a ritual. Their silence was deafening, but I didn't need them to speak. I already knew what they were thinking. Sarah was the first to break the silence. "I never wanted this to happen," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. She stepped forward, but I didn't flinch. I stood my ground, watching her closely. "You're sorry?" I asked, my voice low but steady. You're sorry for what? For betraying me? For abandoning me when I needed you the most? Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She wasn't prepared for this. She wasn't prepared for the coldness I had developed, the coldness I had to adopt in order to survive this nightmare. I never meant for any of this to go this far, she whispered, her eyes pleading with me to understand. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know what to do. Fix it, I repeated, my voice rising. You can't fix it. What you did is done. What you did can't be undone. I could see the guilt on her face, the regret that she was too late to feel. It was almost painful to watch, but I couldn't let myself feel sorry for her. Not anymore. Not after everything she had done. And then I turned to face the others. The ones who had stood by and let it all happen. The ones who had been complicit in this mess. I didn't need to say anything to them. They could feel it, the weight of my gaze, the fire in my eyes. They knew exactly what I was about to do. But it wasn't just Sarah I had come for. It was all of them. Each and every one of them who had thought they could get away with what they did to me. The world had erased me, but I was here, standing in front of them, showing them what it meant to underestimate someone who had nothing left to lose. I've spent too many years of my life letting people walk all over me, I said, my voice breaking through the silence like a thunderclap. But that ends now. You thought you could bury me. You thought I was dead, but I'm not. And now you'll learn that the person you thought was gone is more powerful than you could ever imagine. Their eyes widened in shock. The realization hit them like a wave. It was as if they were seeing me for the first time, as if they hadn't truly understood the strength I possessed until this very moment. I had been pushed to the brink, and in doing so, I had discovered something within myself that I didn't even know existed, a fire that couldn't be extinguished. Sarah took a step back, her face pale. I never meant for you to suffer like this, she whispered. Please, I'm begging you, just come back. We can fix this. We can make it right. But I shook my head, my resolve unwavering. No, you can't fix this. It's too late for that. As I turned to leave, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The storm inside me had finally settled, but the damage had already been done. They would never forget this moment. They would never forget what they had seen. The person they had once known, now standing before them, stronger than they could have ever imagined. And I realized something in that moment. This wasn't just about them. This was about me. This was about reclaiming my own narrative, about deciding how my story would be told. They had tried to bury me, but I had the last laugh. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. But as I walked away from them, I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer the one who had been wronged. I was the one in control. As I walked away from that moment, I realized something that I hadn't fully grasped before. This journey, this battle, was never just about those who had wronged me. It was about discovering who I truly was. The power I had been searching for wasn't in revenge or in making them suffer. It was in taking control of my own narrative, in standing up for myself when no one else did. What they failed to understand was that they hadn't broken me. No matter how hard they tried, no matter how much they had pushed me down, they couldn't destroy what they couldn't see. My spirit, my strength, my resolve. And now, I had something they could never take from me. My sense of self, unshaken, unyielding. The message I want to leave with you is simple but powerful. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're worthless. Don't let them erase your existence or your value. When they try to bury you, rise from the ashes. Show them that you are more than they ever thought you were. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the author of your own story. What's the next step for you? Take back control. Take back your power. Don't wait for anyone's permission. You are worthy of all the greatness the world has to offer, and it's time to step into that greatness. If you've been knocked down, get back up. If you've been silenced, speak louder. If you've been forgotten, make them remember. The world may have thought I was dead, but as long as I breathe, I will rise again.